The next question is, what is hell? And of course, I don't know the answer to that. But we can digest some of the things regarding hell. I think it reminds me of a movie my family used to watch, and in the movie, someone assassinated a public figure, and the chief of police says, "What concerns me is not who pulled the trigger, but who paid for the bullet." And hell and sin are related, and sin is, I see sin as who's pulling the trigger and who's paying for the bullet, right? You were put into this life, even in a generic American Southern Christian structure, you were put into this scenario with the tendencies that you have and the conditions that you have. You were put into this scenario where you misbehave. So you are not totally isolated in responsibility and guilt. But even outside of that, in a bigger picture, I start with something like storage. Let's look at storage. If I take sand and I pour it through your fingers, your open fingers, are you storing sand as it's rushing between your fingers? And I would say that the answer is no, because there is no element of time involved. You cannot have storage, in my head of course, you cannot have storage without time. And what does that do to the world of energy? When you look at the atomic level, at me eating an apple, at the atomic level, the apple is proton, neutron, electron, and I am just proton, neutron, electron, and I'm chewing this apple, and all of a sudden I have energy to run. But at the atomic level, you see, nothing is even happening. They're here, and then they're here, and then they're here, and then they're here, and then they're here. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. So this idea that we store energy is really a superficial layer of reality where it appears as though we're storing energy, but are molecules storing energy? And from where I'm sitting, it just looks like the whole universe, God is in the middle, exploding energy in all directions, and we are streaming energy. There is no storage because time ultimately turns out to be a fiction. Turns out to be a mental construct. There's no time. Can't store anything without time. You have to stream the energy from the divine. God, omnipotence means all-powerful. And I used to think omnipotent meant God could do the same, as much, or more than anything else. But now I see that omnipotence means God has all the power. It's not that God has the power to stop an avalanche. It's that God is the power of the avalanche. He is the resisting force of this, and he is the applying force of this, and all things are animated by God in this moment. If you have a finger that is pulling a trigger of a gun that's pointed at whoever, God is the energy in the finger. He is the energy in the bullet. He's the energy. He's the dying. He's the all of the things which are. Even Jesus said, "I can of my own strength do nothing. Is the Father in me who does the works." And you gotta take it. You gotta see the true nature of what he's saying. I can of my own strength do nothing. And don't try to say, oh, what he meant was, I mean, we either trust Jesus or we don't. We either take him seriously or we don't, right? So God really is this, he's animating everything all the time. And if I asked you, what did Satan eat for breakfast so that he could burn all these people all day? Who is animating the fires in hell? What did Satan eat for breakfast to give him all this energy? Where does Satan get his energy? All things that are things require energy. Who is the energizing force? What is the energizing force of existence? Can there be multiple energizing forces in existence? I don't think so. I think that there is one origin that animates everything. It animates me and you and all this stuff. And then I go and I kick the cat and I feel terrible about it. And then I realize, I don't know if that was me. There is some degree of local responsibility for your behavior, because it really seems we do have some degree of control. But I'm not convinced that we have free will. Even look in the Old Testament, and the Pharaoh says, okay, stop. Okay, Moses, stop cursing me. I'll let him go, I'll let him go, I'll let him go. And then it said God hardened his heart and changed his mind. All right, so is Pharaoh responsible for the hardening of his heart? No. God hardened his heart. God changed. God brought the curse on the people. It was not Pharaoh's fault, totally. It was not totally Pharaoh's fault. Now, you don't have a Bible being written about you right now by someone who's in the mind of God. So no one's there to tell you that you meant to not scream at your neighbor, but God hardened your heart. You don't have anyone telling you that you're off the hook. You don't know. I have a very hard time believing in an outside hell, because I don't think that there's anything that's separate from God. And if you're in hell, then that means that God's in there with you. And I don't see why God would put himself in hell. Why would you wouldn't put your own kid in hell? You wouldn't put yourself in hell just to torture your kid. So what is this business about? It doesn't seem like there is another anyway. To me, when I go to the place of rest, which is the origin of all existence, I go to that place of rest and there is no separation from anything. There's not a you and a me and a God. There's not a fence that God is on the other side of. So I have a hard time believing in hell. A tangible, different hell. It just doesn't make sense, because sin ultimately isn't ours, I don't think. I don't think that God is separate. I don't think that if there is a hell, then to me it's very clear that God is animating that hell. And so what would that mean if God is running hell and heaven and all this stuff? It means, I don't know. But the whole thing just breaks down. It only works in a dualistic framework of good and bad. And that has been exposed to me as flawed. Just doesn't hold up. It's really all seems like one, and the one can't do all these